KRB News is tracking some breaking news for you this morning at 10 o'clock. With Fort Myers police telling us this morning they've arrested the man you see on the screen here. The driver they say is responsible for a deadly crash on McGregor Boulevard. 50-year-old Paul Bombier is now facing a DUI, manslaughter charge and more for a January crash that killed his passenger, Tiffany Thomas. Traffic homicide detectives say that Bombier's blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit when he hit trees on McGregor Boulevard near the Fort Myers Country Club. And investigators say he was driving twice the speed limit when he crashed.
Also breaking at 10 o'clock, firefighters are battling a house fire in Farabee Road in Punta Gorda. We have a crew on the way to that scene. We'll have updates for you starting at noon. Also for you at 10 o'clock, a 7.5-year veteran of the Lee County Sheriff's Office is on administrative leave this morning. His own office arrested the deputy for possessing steroids, marijuana, and drug equipment after responding to a call about a domestic disturbance.
The Sheriff's Office confirms that Deputy First Class John Edens got arrested last night, then promptly posted $3,500 in bail. Detectives inside the Major Crime Unit obtained a sworn evidence affidavit and then asked for a search warrant to go to Deputy Eden's home. Deputy Eden was most recently assigned to patrol in Bonita Springs. Our weather for today? Well, you can't beat it.
No, you can't, and
nice,
especially if you're in Colorado.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, true. We have the good weather, Katie. Parts of the country are just dealing with tough stuff today.
It's amazing just what a variety our nation's weather is holding for us here. Beautiful sunshine, temperatures warming above average into the upper 80s once again this afternoon. Meanwhile, we're already off to a warm note. 74 degrees in Fort Myers, 75 in Naples and Immokalee. Now 77 in Marco Island, the warmest spot in Southwest Florida this hour. 73 for Cape Coral as well as Arcadia. So all in all, a nice morning to be outside. Just a few clouds streaming in from the northwest. Generally some high-level clouds, also a few low-level cumulus in and around Lake Okeechobee. We are calling for a partly cloudy afternoon and some pretty warm temperatures. Yesterday we hit a high of 87 in Fort Myers. Today we are expecting the same thing. That wind out of the east around 10 miles per hour. And as we look ahead to the next several days, notice even warmer numbers on the horizon for tomorrow. Highs expected around 88. Then a bit cooler on Thursday as we start to track that cold front as it makes its way into Southwest Florida. So while this afternoon I think we'll see a nice quiet radar, tomorrow and Thursday keep your eye to the sky for isolated afternoon storms.
All right, Katie, thank you. Well, this is what we were talking about in Colorado. It could be April, but Old Man Winter does not seem to mind there because a strong late season storm continues to move east this morning, bringing up another 8 inches of snow in Denver and blizzard conditions to Colorado Springs. You can look at the pictures as the snow just started to fall this morning and schools are closed in the Denver area. Denver International Airport already reporting dozens of canceled flights. And just in at 10, 2 American service members were killed in Afghanistan this morning after a helicopter crashed in a field. The cause of that crash is still under investigation, but initial reports show there was no enemy activity in that area at the time. And just this month alone, 9 Americans have died in Afghanistan.
North Korea is now urging foreign companies and tourists in South Korea to evacuate. The North claims the two nations are on the brink of a nuclear war. We can take a live look right now at what's happening in Washington. This is the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing testimony from the U.S. Pacific Command on the possibility of a direct attack on the U.S. The top U.S. military commander in the Pacific says North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons and long-range ballistic missiles represents a clear and direct threat to the United States and its allies in that region. Analysts do say it's unlikely that there will actually be an attack. And there's a new CNN poll out showing that Americans are still worried about North Korea. 41% characterize North Korea as an immediate threat to the U.S., with another 41% saying the North is a long-term threat to the United States. And closer to home, the search for 2 missing Florida boys apparently ends in Cuba. Cuban officials sent out a release to Hillsborough County officials saying that the Haken family landed on the island yesterday. If the family actually is in Cuba, there's little the U.S. can do to get the boys back. Joshua Haken, the boy's father, is accused of entering into his mother-in-law's house north of Tampa last week, tying her up and taking off with his sons, Cole and Chase.
Right now, family members of Sandy Hook Elementary victims are lobbying in Washington for tougher gun restrictions, and several families actually flew in with President Obama to the nation's capital aboard Air Force One.
But it turns out the lawmakers may not even get a vote on some of these new proposals, and Susan McGinnis explains why.
12 family members of the Newtown school shooting joined President Obama aboard Air Force One for a flight to Washington. They're here to lobby senators to vote for new gun control laws. David Wheeler's son Benjamin was one of the 20 children killed.
You hear all the time that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, then let's start some background checks for people.
But 13 GOP senators signed a letter pledging to filibuster any gun control bill they feel infringes on their Second Amendment rights. And now Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is joining them. The move is not a complete surprise. This is a robocall McConnell released in his home state in January.
President Obama and his team are doing everything in their power to restrict your constitutional right to keep and bear arms.
Because of the filibuster efforts, the Senate can't begin debating new gun control legislation until they can get 60 senators to approve a motion.
There's no better place than the Senate to begin a national conversation about such critical issues, even if they're divisive issues.
During President Obama's speech in Connecticut Monday, the crowd chanted its disapproval of the GOP filibuster. President Obama believes the Newtown families have the power to convince senators to bring the bill up for a vote.
Nothing's going to be more important in making sure that Congress moves forward this week than hearing from them.
The Sandy Hook families begin their lobbying effort today. In Washington, Susan McGinnis, Wink News Now this morning.
The Sandy Hook parents are lobbying on behalf of Sandy Hook Promise. It's a nonprofit organization created in Newtown, Connecticut in the wake of December's shooting.
Check Wall Street for you this morning. The Dow is now off by just 1 point, 1.5 points. Shot up this morning based on some encouraging economic data that came out of China and Europe, and also the first earnings report of the quarter came in from Alcoa after the markets shut down yesterday. That sent the markets up, but overall earnings expectations are not that good, and that's why it has since turned the corner in the first 37 minutes of the trading day. So the Dow is essentially flat right now at 14,612. There's some good news for Boeing. Looks like the troubled 787 Dreamliner could get back up into the air by the end of May. And the sole American-based carrier agrees. United Airlines saying this morning it believes that battery problems aboard the jet have been fixed, and it's adding the Dreamliner back into its schedule beginning May 31st. Aviation officials grounded the jet in January after some battery-related fires. The FAA still has the final say to approve the fix and to also certify flights.
More flying trouble this morning, this time for a helicopter pilot. The NTSB confirms it's investigating a first case of so-called distracted flying. Today's hearing stems from a 2011 medical helicopter crash in Missouri. Reports say a pilot may have failed to refuel his aircraft because he was texting. The reports show the pilot sent as many as 20 texts within 2 hours of that crash, including during the flight. That crash killed 4 people. And here in Florida, the push to ban texting and driving is just one step closer to becoming law. The state Senate cleared a bill yesterday that would make texting and driving a secondary offense. Now that means police would have to pull you over for something else like speeding or an illegal turn before fining you for texting. A first violation is a $30 fine plus court costs. If it happens again within 5 years, 3 points will be added to the driver's license, and they would get a $60 fine. That bill is now headed to the House.
Attorneys for Casey Anthony returned to court today in part of her bankruptcy case. The judge is set to decide if Anthony's trustees can sell the rights to her story to help her pay off her debts. Remember, the jury acquitted the 26-year-old in the murder of her daughter, 2-year-old Kaylee. Anthony's never told, though, what she says happened, and she owes about $792,000 to several creditors. College basketball's got a new champion this morning. It's the University of Louisville.
So we chose right. After trailing at the half, the team came back to beat Michigan 82-76, but Michigan had an early lead thanks to freshman Spike Albrecht, who knocked down his first 4 three-point attempts. Louisville's Luke Hancock responded with 5 three-pointers of his own, leading the Cardinals to victory, and he's the first backup to be named the Final Four's most outstanding player. Rick Pitino, now the first head coach in history to win a national championship at 2 different schools, the other, Kentucky, in 1996. And Michigan fans didn't take that championship loss too well. It apparently inspired some fans to set several fires across Ann Arbor. Firefighters responded to at least 7 fires and police arrested 2 people. Louisville fans also got a bit out of control. Police were forced to use tear gas to break up some late-night revelers.
Louisville, too, could double up on the championships because tonight makes all the difference. The NCAA women's tournament will be decided in New Orleans, and it's Louisville against the University of Connecticut for the women's title match. Tip-off for the game is at 8:30.
Hollywood is mourning a loss this morning. Longtime Disney star Annette Funicello passed away yesterday after a long battle with multiple sclerosis.
The 70-year-old was also known for her role in a number of beach movies, and Nichelle Turner is going to take a look back at her life and career.
She became known as America's sweetheart, first capturing hearts in simpler times as a Disney Mouseketeer.
My years as a Mouseketeer were some of the happiest of my life. I had Walt Disney behind me. He was my mentor. To have that man on your side was such a great asset.
Later, she starred in those popular beach movies with perennial co-star Frankie Avalon.
It's just like we're married.
Exactly.
The first, Beach Party, came out in 1963. She made more than 20 movies in all and recorded more than 30 albums. But she downplayed her vocal skill.
32 albums later, I'm still saying I don't sing.
Yeah, let's give it a whirl.
In 1987, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and went public with her condition 5 years later. She credited friends and loyal fans for helping stand by her.
There were many days when I really had to have a good cry because of the mail and the phone calls I got. Sacks of mail. I just want to make people feel better. And I've had so much contact with people. And we hug each other and we'll have a good cry together. And people don't necessarily put me up on a pedestal anymore. I'm one of them now.
In later years, MS left her confined to a wheelchair, but she remained positive.
If I can't make someone happy, I'm so thrilled. Really.
At a tribute to Funicello in 1997, the former Mouseketeer was surrounded, naturally, by her Disney companions.
For every important event of my life, Mickey Mouse is always by my side, and I hope he always will be.
Nichelle Turner, CNN, Hollywood.
Now at 10, as North Korea continues to threaten the use of nuclear weapons, what the UN says needs to be done to prevent a war from breaking out. And a second investigation continues this morning into Lee County School Superintendent Joseph Burke. Well, the latest details on what the state wants school board members to do.
From Southwest Florida's news leader, this is Wink News Now at 10 a.m.
Thanks for joining us for Wink News Now at 10 a.m. I'm Amanda Hall. Our top story this morning, Alligator Alley remains closed at this hour. Fire crews continue to put out hot spots this morning at a 20,000-acre wildfire in the Big Cypress National Preserve. Helicopters are also dropping water from above. Visibility has improved along Alligator Alley, but troopers want to be cautious and will keep the roads closed until the visibility is safe.
Any wind in the area could fuel the fire into new directions, so it's what we like to keep an eye on.
At this point, the fire is just 40% contained. Stay tuned to Wink News for the latest information on any road closures. Andy Enfield is soaring to the West Coast. He signed a deal overnight, becoming the next head coach for the University of Southern California's men's basketball team. The 43-year-old spent 2 seasons in Fort Myers, leading the Florida Gulf Coast men's basketball team to its first ever history-making run in the NCAA tournament. Speaking with the USC Athletic Department, Enfield says, quote, "I especially thank my players for their exceptional accomplishments that put FGCU on the national map. I know the program will continue to soar." Wink News will continue to follow Enfield's departure throughout the day and bring you the latest information as we get it. Turning to our weather now, we can see the skies. The clouds have cleared a little bit, and it's nice and warm out there.
Yes, the sky is turning blue. Now we're starting to burn off those low clouds, and we did have some patchy fog and haze this morning. Still pretty humid outside, and that's what we'll deal with through the afternoon. But boy, it is gorgeous outside. Take a live look at our Wink News sky cam down Palm Beach Boulevard heading to the east, and you can see low clouds in the distance. And low clouds are burning off, and that'll give way to a mostly sunny morning, partly cloudy later this afternoon. Visible satellite, 8 o'clock. Once again, you can see that fog across southwest Florida, and that's starting to burn off, and it looks like it will by 11 o'clock or so this morning. Current temperature is pretty warm with the humidity, 72 degrees Fort Myers, 67 Immokalee, 64 Palmdale, 68 Arcadia, 69 Port Charlotte, 71 degrees in Punta Gorda. And you can see from southwest Florida southward, dew point's pretty high in the middle and upper 60s. So once again, that does measure the amount of moisture in the air. We'll feel a little bit warmer than our actual air temperature with the humidity today, and it will be a warm one. In fact, 85 degrees, partly cloudy, and we do have the threat of an isolated inland shower, but with the steering currents going from west to east, I'm expecting I-75 westward to look pretty clear today. When I come back, I'll let you know when all of us here in southwest Florida will see some rain.
All right, Eric, thank you very much. Right now, President Obama is holding a press conference to announce a new investment for research in hopes of unlocking some of the human brain's mysteries. Let's get you to a live look there where the president's advisor is addressing the media, so it looks like we're just a couple of minutes away. According to officials, the president is investing more than $100 million next year for the research. The president mentioned the idea in his State of the Union address, comparing it to the Human Genome Project that mapped DNA. He says the research could eventually help answer questions about diseases like Alzheimer's. Developing this morning, Fort Myers Police and the Lee County Sheriff's Office continue to investigate an early morning robbery at the McDonald's restaurant on Colonial Boulevard in 6 Mile Cypress. Authorities say the suspect got away with cash and that injuries of employees are unclear at this point. We'll be following this story today and let you know of any updates. North Korea is promising to restart its main nuclear complex. This latest threat comes the same day South Korea's foreign minister meets with Secretary of State John Kerry in Washington. Today's meeting comes just one day after the U.S. put a warship off the Korean coast to shield against a ballistic missile attack. The White House says despite threats from Pyongyang, it doesn't believe North Korea is taking steps to start a military mission.
We are not seeing changes to the North Korean military posture, such as large-scale mobilizations and positioning of forces.
The destroyer the U.S. put on the coast is capable of shooting down ballistic missiles. Threats from Pyongyang come amid U.S.-South Korean military drills and new sanctions from the UN after its February 12th underground nuclear test. This morning, Senator Marco Rubio released a statement on his concerns over North Korea. He wants lawmakers to remember the North Korean regime keeps hundreds of thousands of citizens in concentration camps. He says the real solution to this challenge will come only once all concerned parties realize that this odious regime is the problem and join the United States in pressuring China to change its policy of supporting Pyongyang. Senator Rubio is also asking the Obama administration to relist North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism because of its support of Iran and Syria. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly will vote today on what would be the first UN treaty regulating the multi-billion-dollar international arms trade. This after Iran, North Korea, and Syria blocked its adoption by consensus. The resolution to adopt the treaty requires support from a majority of the 193 UN member states. Since the treaty had strong support when it was introduced last Thursday, its approval is almost certain. Investigators in Kaufman, Texas are still working to piece together the murder of a state district attorney and his wife. An interim attorney is now in the office, but as Ed Payne explains, the town is still on edge.
Armed guards surround the courthouse in Kaufman, Texas after the killing of District Attorney Mike McClelland and his wife.
We are all on heightened alert. There's no question about that. We are following the directions we've been given by law enforcement as far as what we should be doing.
Now, Brandy Fernandez, McClelland's first assistant district attorney, takes over the office as an interim DA. The death of Mike McClelland comes less than 2 months after assistant prosecutor Mark Hasse was gunned down. Authorities have yet to make a connection between the deaths of the two men. Colleague and friend Peter Schulte says both men understood the risks that came with their jobs.
Said that we do dangerous jobs. Our law enforcement officials, our assistant DAs, our elected DAs, do dangerous jobs, but they choose to do it because it's a calling.
Governor Rick Perry is advising public officials to remain vigilant.
I'd suggest everyone should be careful about what goes on, whether they're public officials or otherwise. But this, I think, is a clear concern to individuals who are in public life.
Ed Payne, Wink News Now this morning.
Governor Rick Perry has the power to appoint a successor for the district attorney job. Prosecutors in Colorado are seeking the death penalty for James Holmes, despite the defense's offer to plead guilty and serve a lifetime prison sentence. Holmes showed no emotion when the district attorney announced that death would be the only justice in the case. Holmes is accused of killing 12 and injuring 70 in a movie theater attack last July. His trial is being pushed back to February of next year. Connecticut lawmakers have reached a deal on new gun control measures in what they say will be the toughest gun laws in the country. But a Republican leader says none of the laws would take guns or ammunition away. The new restrictions include a ban on large-capacity ammunition clips, as well as new background checks for private gun sales. And as leaders hashed out the details on the new gun laws, family members of those killed at Sandy Hook Elementary gathered nearby. Politicians say the decision comes in the aftermath of December's deadly shooting that left 20 children and 7 adults dead. Parents say the bill demands the change that they want.
It's our job to make sure it doesn't happen for our son.
Everybody needs to think about it and look into their hearts and try to do what's necessary to make the changes that have to happen.
The Connecticut General Assembly will take up the legislation when it returns to session tomorrow. The first of nearly 3 dozen Atlanta public school educators charged in a cheating scandal turned herself in today. A grand jury indicted the group of teachers last week on criminal charges. Former educator Tamika Goodson walked into the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta early this morning. Goodson worked as a school improvement specialist at Atlanta Middle School. Her attorney said she will be cleared of any wrongdoing. Happening today, the Lee County School Board will discuss a new investigation against the district superintendent. This will be the second investigation into Dr. Joseph Burke. The first was for his handling of an investigation into Dr. Deidre Hicks. Then last week, the state ordered board members to look into new allegations against him. They want more information on how Dr. Burke distributed grant money. This comes after Dr. Burke announced he'll retire in June. Wink News will be at the special meeting, and you can trust us for new developments as we get them. On the money, taking a live look at the big board, you can see the Dow on a roll this morning after opening higher, still up about 90 points, trading at 14,663, helped in part by some figures from Chrysler. Other automakers expected to report their sales figures today. Industry analysts estimate total U.S. sales are expected to be up 3 to 5% from a year ago. Today is World Autism Awareness Day. Every year on April 2nd, autism organizations around the world observe the day with awareness programs and fundraisers. The group Autism Speaks says this developmental disability affects 1 in every 88 children. It also has no medical detection or cure. The Empire State Building is also honoring Autism Speaks by lighting its tower in blue today. For a clear sign the housing market is on the upswing, just take a look at real estate here in Southwest Florida. The region was one of the centers of the mortgage meltdown, along with California and Nevada. Sarah Ganem has the story of a 32-story condo complex that had 1 family living in it in 2009, but it's now almost at capacity.
Fort Myers is hot. Not because of that Florida sun, it's the real estate market. After years of economic misery, one of the hardest hit areas in the country is bouncing back. Listen to this real estate investor.
Years ago, and I'm talking about 2009 or 2010, 2011, to get people into a kind of community and show life, we played music. We made sure there were people present. We don't have to do that anymore.
The last time we were at this 200-unit high-rise condo complex called the Oasis, it was 2009. The building was a ghost town, the pool unused. In 2009, there was 1 family living here. Now they have plenty of neighbors. The building is almost at capacity, and that's a reflection of the real estate market across South Florida.
Love it.
Terry Van Eman moved in 2 years ago. Do you like that you have neighbors now?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the more people, the merrier. It's a blast now.
A report by Metro Study says new construction in the Fort Myers area was up more than 50% in the last quarter of 2012 compared to the year before. A Standards & Poor's study says across America, home values are rising at the fastest pace since the market slump began. But prices are still affordable. That's attracting buyers. But anyone who bought before the slump got burned.
He could buy that today for about half of what he paid for it in 2009.
Along this beautiful Fort Myers riverfront 3 years ago, there were 1,500 condos for sale. Today, only 150.
And if you live here in Southwest Florida, you know the winter months are always crowded, but is our season just beginning? An early Easter this year had many thinking tourists would be out of the area sooner than normal. But we found the beach full of people just starting their vacations. Now more families are visiting the beaches, and that, business owners say, is good for their bottom line. Ahead for you at 10, a cold prank, literally, what one NHL team did to their rookie teammate that left him alone on the ice. Eric?
It's not going to be cold here. Temperatures in the mid-80s all the way through Thursday, but look what happens on Friday, 78. When I come back, I'll let you know why.